Monterey County Supervisor, District 4.
Okay, thank you. So thank you all for being here. I think really my big message, I'll keep this brief, but the work that you're doing as leaders in our community, as voices for our future, it matters. You matter. The way that you're organizing is how things get done. So I serve on the Monterey County Unified School District Board of Education, where the elected body has committed resources to look to our future for energy savings, for conservation work. But the work that we're doing is not enough. We've, on our 21 campuses, we've, over 5 years, reduced energy usage by almost 20%, reduced natural gas usage by over 30%, and reduced water usage by 50%. But I'm telling you, it's not enough. And the way that we're going to do more is because you show up and you demand that we do more. It's because you organize and you educate those in positions of decision making about why this matters and about what we need to do differently to do more for our future. So thank you for understanding how imperative it is that we make change. A couple things I just want to point out, and I have my notes down there. So as an elected official, we think we get to make all the decisions. We're the ones, that get to vote. And the reality is that what I've learned working in local government is that the reality is that nothing happens because you get a group of elected officials together. That's not how change happens. Change happens because you have a group of elected officials who are working in partnership with a community, an organized community who has a message. And that organized community is what you're doing right now. It's the work that Sunrise is doing. It's the work that you are doing in our community to bring people together around a common issue. And so between that relationship between your elected officials with your community groups, as an elected official, when I show up with an issue that I care about, and I've got a community behind me, and I've got voices behind me, and I've got organized power behind me, it allows me to be more effective in achieving the goals that we share. So I just want to emphasize how significant the work that Sunrise is, how important it is, and how really it's only because of elected officials working in partnership with Sunrise, and Sunrise being there to push elected officials to that next step. We can be doing great things, but we need to be doing more. And the only way we're going to do more is because you're there pushing on us to do more. Because you show up at the meetings, and because you bring other people into the conversation, and because you keep certain topics at the forefront of our conversation. We're always going to have choices about where to invest our resources and where to invest our time and our limited money and limited dollars. And so it's because you're present that we're going to make choices to invest our resources into planning for climate change, into mitigating climate change, into ensuring that our budgets are prepared in such a way that we can understand what our climate vulnerabilities are and make sure that we're protecting our most vulnerable populations. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And I am so excited to be able to work with you as I run for the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. And I'm thrilled, looking forward to the future possibility of working with you as I sit on the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. So thank you for having me today, and I look forward to continuing our relationship. Woo!
Hello everyone, my name is Vincent and I'm a member of the Sunrise Movement Salinas. The reason I joined Sunrise was because I was extremely disappointed by the 2016 elections. I felt that it would no longer just suffice to just vote and donate. I felt like I had to do more. I'm worried about many problems we face today, such as jobs becoming increasingly insecure, housing being unaffordable, increasing levels of anxiety and depression, and increasing levels of wealth inequality, and of course, climate change. I believe that the solution to these things is if we stand together and fight for a Green New Deal. That is the direction that I want the country to go, and that's why I joined the Sunrise Movement. Before our December 6th climate strike, Sunrise Movement Santa Cruz and Salinas met with Congressman Jimmy Panetta to issue him a series of demands on climate change. Jimmy Panetta refused to sign the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge and stated that he did not take any fossil fuel money. That is a lie. Some of his top donors have large-scale oil operations. The next speaker is Adam Scow, who is running for Congress against Jimmy Panetta. We have recently endorsed Adam. Adam has taken the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge, and he supports the Green New Deal, sustainable agriculture, and Medicare for all. I'll let Adam.
Thank you, Sunrise Salinas. Now is our time to take back our country and to fight for our survival. And it's going to happen because of a rise of democracy in Salinas that we have never seen before. And that is what it's going to take to win this election, but not only this election, but future elections. We need democracy at all levels of government. In 2016, I had the honor, I was in Salinas. It was a very interesting, surreal night. We were working on Measure Z, which banned fracking in all new oil wells here in Monterey County. And many people counted this out. They said we could not win it. I know some people here who worked on that. Anybody here remember that night? I know we got Dr. Lala Sarodia here, Dominic Dursis here. I'm sure many of you remember millions of dollars spent to defeat Measure Z. And we shocked the world and we won Measure Z. We had a big celebration, but at the same time, we found out this guy named Donald Trump was going to be our next president. I remember it was a very weird feeling of driving Highway 68 from Salinas to Monterey that night. So here we are 4 years later. We have Bernie Sanders leading the Democratic field. We got great candidates. We have Wendy Rudaski, she had to go running for Monterey County Supervisor. And it wasn't the master plan, but I am running for Congress to champion a Green New Deal so we can have a future for every generation so that humanity can continue. Because that is exactly what is at stake in this election and every election that comes after it. 2020 is the biggest election year ever, and then 2022 is going to be the next big election year ever, and then 2024. So we are going to build a movement, and it's got to start with the young generation. The young generation gets counted out. Political consultants say, they don't vote. They don't count. But they don't vote. Oh yeah? We're going to show them something, and that's how we're going to win this race. My opponent, Jimmy Panetta, his climate bill exempts factory farming and actually pays oil companies to try to inject carbon dioxide underground while they continue to drill. He refused to support Measure Z. He refused to support Measure J in San Benito County to ban fracking there. In 2014, I worked on that campaign. And he refused to support Measure J on the Monterey Peninsula to win public water ownership, as the community there has long suffered from private water ownership. This is not a time to duck. Jimmy Panetta is not even endorsing Wendy Rudaski. Wendy Rudaski is running against a Republican who just switched his registration, named Steve McShane. He's not even supporting her. As your Congress member, I'm going to be working with you to nurture grassroots democracy so we can have a healthy level of democracy and real representation on every level. Salinas City Council, Monterey County Supervisor, you name it. We're going to build it. We cannot talk about 2050. We need to figure out a 2030 plan, 100% clean up the grid. I am for public water now, but I am also for public power now. PG&E is a criminal company, and every time they screw up and burn people's homes down, you know what happens? They get a rate hike. They get a bailout, a $6 billion line of credit. For a long time, the California Democratic Party was largely funded by PG&E. In 2018, Jimmy Panetta's largest donor, one of them was PG&E, $10,000. That ain't gonna cut it. We got to fight to take the special interest on. I wish a corporate bipartisanism could solve all our problems. That's Jimmy Panetta's approach. Bipartisanism with the Republicans. Isn't that nice? Well, if they were going to solve our problems, great. But it's not solving anything. Congress has been nothing in 20 years since Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, a grand total of 0 as the climate crisis has gotten worse. Bill McKibben, endorsed by the campaign. He started an organization called 350.org. When he started it, we had about 365 parts per million CO2. We're now at 415. This is a crisis, and this is the year we must act and we must build to win. And that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to win this campaign here by winning in Salinas. We're going to win in Santa Cruz. We're going to win in Seaside and Marina. And we're going to do better than anybody thinks we're going to do in the Monterey Peninsula. I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful for your endorsement. Nobody's going to give this to us. We have to go take it. We have the moral authority, but the moral authority is not enough to win. Politics is about power. The other side has the money, we got the people. But we got to organize the people. We have 33 days till the March 3rd primary. 33 days. This is an opportunity. Let's not squander it. And after those 33 days, we will have another party and get ready to go work for November. We're going to pace ourselves. We're going to celebrate, but now is the time to fight. There's no time to be depressed, as you know. Not time to be depressed. It is a time to unite, to talk to our neighbors, to talk to our fellow high school students. Those of you involved in high school, that's when I got active. A family friend of mine ran for Congress. I was working the phone banks, walking our neighborhoods. Maybe I was just bored, but no, I had a great time. That is what we got to do. All the high school kids at Salinas High, every high school, we got to talk to their parents, and we got to get out and vote on March 3rd. A lot of people still do not know we have an election on March 3rd. We got 33 days. Let's go out and do it. And then we'll come back here to Mitiera again, and we'll have some more tacos. And we'll have some fun. Thank you so much.
Before we start, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering on traditional lands of Malone, Rumsen, and Amamutsun people, both past and present. I pay my respects to the land and to the people who stewarded it for generations. These people had to endure violent prosecution by settlers and California state-sponsored racist policies towards Native Americans. The Costanoan Rumsen tribe moved to Southern California and found work on the ranchos in 1864. They have been largely written out of historical accounts of California and wrongly recorded as extinct. Today, the Costanoan Rumsen tribe has over 2,000 members, letting others know of their continued existence, concern for the environment, and the desire for unity amongst all peoples.
We have a ticking time bomb, right? We have 11 years, and we really just have 1 year to make a political change. Presidential candidates are in Iowa right now, and we can shape the narrative. Because this is not just something that you vote for and you go home. It's something that you vote for, and then you have to work on it, you have to build it. We need to rekindle the public imagination discussion.
I work in public policy, and it's always our goal to try to get ordinary people to get excited about a public policy idea that could change their lives. And I've never seen anything like the Green New Deal.
Well, it's been 10 years since the Green New Deal was implemented. Massive people protested, walked off their jobs, and change started across the land like a tidal wave. I am proud of all of you in this long and fruitful battle for equality and advancement.
The problem is so big, it's hard to imagine. But America and the world's top scientists widely agree that we are running out of time. That mankind has as little as a dozen years to stop burning so much carbon and save life on Earth as we know it.
The climate system determines everything that happens on the surface of the earth. How hard the wind blows, what the seasons look like, how much food we can grow, how high the sea level rises.
The planet's never been as hot as it is today when there were humans around to walk on it. And that means that everything we've ever known as a species, all of that is the result of the climate conditions we've already entirely left behind. If we're headed on the path that we're on today, nothing like the life that we live in, that we enjoy and experience today, will be possible 50 or 75 years from now.
This is different from other crises or issues that we face because it comes with a time limit. 30 years ago, we were issuing warnings about what would happen. Now we're just issuing bulletins from the front lines.
Roofs, peels from buildings, debris flying. Structures collapsing. Up to 30 inches of rain in some areas, engulfing whole neighborhoods.
Fire officials say it began as a campfire that grew out of control and quickly burned several thousand structures in its path as wind gusts up to 33 miles per hour fed the flames.
I can feel the heat here. This is insane. Holy oh, you can feel the heat. Oh, this is crazy.
We've brought the fate of the planet into doubt in the space of a single generation, and we haven't got that much time to save it.
A new generation of activists are now forcing the issue in the halls of Congress.
I remember when I was first getting involved in the climate movement, I would lie there awake for hours and just feel this like rising anxiety in my stomach, in my gut, in my heart, just feeling this like overwhelming and sinking sense of despair that where we were at wasn't even close to enough to solve the greatest issue of our lifetimes.
One major Democratic priority, energy and climate change legislation, was left by the wayside.
The effort stalled amid competing priorities like health reform and financial regulation.
Where does climate change rank in terms of priorities of how people vote? Climate change is not a real intense issue for a lot of people.
People oftentimes think climate change is an issue that's impacting us 30, 40, 50 years into the future. I can't think about that right now because I'm thinking about my mortgage, my kids. A lot of the people who ended up starting Sunrise and were part of the core leadership were politicized and first got engaged in movement organizing in the era of parts per million and polar bears. Like that's how we were talking about the climate issue. We needed a new story for the climate movement.
We're telling a story that we think the greatest number of people in this country will see themselves in, which is a story about people in the fight of our lives. Blame is not equally shared. There is a small handful of greedy billionaires who have been driving us towards catastrophe for decades. If we can unite by the millions, if we can build an army of young people, we can win solutions at the scale of the crisis that we face.
I went to my very first launch training at Sunrise, and I remember we were in this little basement room, and we talked about the scale of the climate crisis and the inaction of establishment politicians, and we had this yellow slide that says, "So we got to take over." And I remember being in this little room of 30 people and being like, "Oh my God, how are we going to do that?"
Democrats will win the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives.
I remember this so clearly as an article came out. The title was "Dems Damp Down Hopes on Climate Action." That was our whole mission, was to be able to make at least the Democrats care about the climate crisis and make it a top priority, and was giving every sign that that was not going to be true.
We realized that we had to do something to make an intervention in the Democratic Party.
I remember when I got introduced to a couple of friends, and they were young climate activists. And they were telling me about this crazy idea that they had to sit in on the soon-to-be speaker's office demanding that big, bold action. And I was like, well, I don't know why the heck Nancy Pelosi would listen to you.
In the depths of despair, we also have one of the greatest opportunities in front of us as well. The thousands of people that we can move, the millions
Green New Deal now.
I'm trying to call it like beating people in songs, and feeling the weight of like 250 voices at my side was one of the most powerful things I have ever experienced.
What happened when Sunrise started occupying offices and demonstrating after the midterm elections, and what happened in those midterm elections was the first time that I really felt any kind of climate hope since Trump was elected.
They call themselves the Sunrise Movement, and after dozens were arrested for occupying the offices of top Democrats, dozens of top Democrats are now singing their song.
Let me thank the young people of this country for leading the effort against climate change.
This younger generation, they're just fed up. I think now we have an army out there.
You and other members of the Sunrise Movement are going to be the ones who are going to receive the credit for this change. You have forced those in positions of power to do the right thing.
I think what's really captured people's imagination is that they started leading with the yes, like the vision of the post-carbon economy, and that's what the Green New Deal is.
The original New Deal helped pull America out of the Great Depression with massive public works projects, dams and grids and a civilian conservation corps over 2 million strong. But it also set up a modern welfare state. And so the Sunrisers are demanding not just clean power, but Medicare for all, resettlement funds, and climate-related jobs.
The Green New Deal is an economic vision for the 21st century. It is a plan to tackle the twin crises of our lifetimes, that of economic inequality and that of climate change.
Getting off of fossil fuels is essentially like changing the food that we eat as a society. That's a huge transformation. And so this is about making sure that we transform it in the ways that millions of Americans have been asking us to for a long time, which is to make it a country with better jobs, with more jobs.
An opportunity for a reignition of the American engine of prosperity, and also a sort of healing of the soul of America that is now as divided as it's been in my lifetime. The Green New Deal isn't just smart economics and smart climate science, it's also smart politics. Show me what the constituency is for a climate austerity where everybody's lives are a little bit worse and a little bit harder because of action on climate change. Right now, you have half of American families that couldn't pay a $400 bill without going into debt or selling something. And so this is not the time to say that climate change is going to cost working and middle class Americans even more when we know that there is plenty of money at the top.
I grew up in Florida. I grew up with 5 hurricanes a year sometimes. People report on the death tolls. People report on the houses that we watched to see. But what they wouldn't be there for is everything that happened later on. And so if you weren't able to afford to repair your shingles 5 times a year, you get a hole in your ceiling. And that hole would get bigger every year and every hurricane. And we got a hole in our ceiling, and I would come home from school sometimes and the water would be up to my ankles. And then the hole would get bigger. And then we lost all of our furniture because of a trip on the furniture. We just had a bigger living room, and that hole would get bigger. My family was poor. We couldn't repair this hole. We had no hope of repairing the hole, so we just ignored it. And if I would ever talk about it, my mom would get angry at me. We're not supposed to look at the hole. It's just there. We just live with it. And I hated environmentalists. Like, you have to realize, growing up in Florida, we hated Al Gore. We hated environmentalists. We despised the people who told us our state was going to sink into the sea. I don't have time to worry about the apocalypse. I gotta worry about the end of the month.
The transformation that's needed in order to create a Green New Deal is going to look different in disinvested neighborhoods in Indiana versus coastal cities and towns in Florida and the Gulf. And so what's exciting about it is the possibility of inviting Americans of all stripes and say, what would it look like for you to have a role in reshaping our economy and saving our planet for your children and your children's children? To ask Americans, what do you want to see? What are you willing to do? And I think the answer will be beautiful.
I'm an accidental environmentalist. For me, as a doctor, as somebody who's always focused on public health, I'd always say, look, you've got babies dying, we should be focused on that. I never really appreciated how fundamental the environment was. until I became health commissioner in this city, in Detroit. And in my role, I saw exactly what it was that was causing climate change as it was being funneled through the lungs of small children. Right now, we have an energy system that predicates our ability to light our spaces and to drive our cars on taking stuff out of the ground and then burning it into the lungs of our children. And in this city alone, our kids are 3 times as likely to be hospitalized for asthma than the state average. And that has everything to do with the kind of air pollution that we see coming out of smokestacks. Not only will climate change devastate the very space we call home on this globe, but also the means of climate change is hurting people directly in local communities that are industrial like the city of Detroit.
It's hard. It's hard when you have a child that's born with compromised lungs. Where we are today, we're here in Southwest Detroit, 4217. This is an area where many African Americans came north to find jobs at the oil refinery, at the automotive industry, and the steel mills. This was the first area that African Americans were allowed to come and buy homes. We have more than 33 heavily important industries that are located in the Southwest Detroit area. Over the years, Southwest Detroit has seen a serious rise in cancer. And I mean all types of cancer. Lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, stomach cancer. We're a community and people that have been marginalized, have been ignored and left behind. If I could be a constructor of the Green New Deal, it would be a future for my children and grandchildren to have air that is not brown, that is not gray, that is not black with pollution. The poor would have equity. That's what the Green New Deal would be if I could construct it.
The good news about the Green New Deal is that the substance, the idea that we should take on climate change by creating jobs, rebuilding American infrastructure, and promoting greater social justice and equity is broadly popular. The challenge is that we are up against the most powerful propaganda machine, arguably, in the world, and that's called Fox News.
Democrats unveiling their radical, extreme Green New Deal today, eliminating cows in the next 10 years. When we talk about getting rid of air travel in the United States and rebuilding every building.
And the thing that's been most dispiriting is that a number of prominent Democratic leaders have not come to the backs of the climate movement that's been pushing for the Green New Deal. A number of our older leaders, people who have the experience of losing to Reagan in the 80s, are very scared to stand up for the things that they believe in.
Asking for we're trying to present this letter that we think the Senator Feinstein. We are trying to ask you to vote yes on the Green New Deal.
There are reasons why I can't, because there's no way to pay for it. What's interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that.
You can go and meet the most powerful person on earth. You can be the Senator of the United States of America, and you can ask them to make a change. You can ask them to change the country. And they will react to you like they're a middleman trying to send up on them. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I can't change the recipe. That's not me. Go to your politician and demand the role that you want. And if they did not deliver, then you replace that politician. Go and strike for your wildest dreams. Anything is possible, okay?
We've heard so much. You're young, you're naive, you're too radical, you're impractical. The only radical thing at this critical juncture in history would be to do nothing.
I think about in 1960 when they started doing the student sit-ins, that was a massive confrontation moment that turned society on its head. It was extremely disruptive to everyday life.
Within a period of 2 months, the movement has spread to 65 cities involving every southern state.
We need to have that level of activity and even bigger going on now around the climate crisis. It's all building towards a ability to execute a mass disruptive movement and sustain that going forward such that it can force concessions to prevent the decade of the Green New Deal.
I think there's something extraordinary going on globally with young people. Young people are fighting their fire, right?
The world is waking up, and change is coming, whether you like it or not.
Students and workers all around the world are flooding the streets demanding action on climate change.
It is going to take tens of millions of people in the streets.
Police arrested 27 young people and hauled them out of the State House. Climate activists who say they have no choice but to face arrest.
If we can pull it off, it will feel fully uncontrollable. And it will feel like even if we wanted to control it, that we can't. Because it is time for a generational uprising that can change the course of this country.
The very future of human civilization as we know it is on the line. What wouldn't you do to protect that?
So while we're waiting to watch the next video, I'm going to be talking in between this. Hi, I'm Lucia McDonough. I'm a senior at Salinas High School, and I joined the Sunrise Movement I believe in September 2019. October? There you go. So this movie was really inspiring me. I really appreciate the idea that we as a people need to unite and basically try to talk to our politicians about what we need for our world. We really need to make sure that we establish that we need jobs we need to establish reusable energy for this country. We cannot be sticking with oil, like energy from oil and gas. We need to unite together. I don't like the fact that we spend so much on the military. The crisis in Iran that happened earlier this year, terrible. There's so much money that goes into that, and I feel like it's time for us to unite together and realize that we need to put more money into things that will be able to help our people, things that will be able to help people rather than just attack the other, rather than using it to attack the other people around the world. So the fact that thank you so much for everyone who came out today. The fact that you're here trying to learn more about this and unite together to help us spread our cause to people means a lot.
Thank you so much, Latia, for sharing your story. And so we just watched 15, 20-minute video. Let's take a minute to just impact all that. Please turn to the neighbor next to you and just share your name, pronouns, why you're here today, and just how did that make you feel? What are you feeling right now? So, would anyone like to share anything interesting that was said?
Okay, what I found interesting about the video is that it was really inspiring because basically learning about there's a lot of people throughout the country and around the world who are still fighting this crisis and they've done.
We were talking about the challenges of talking to people who are either apathetic or don't agree, and my opinion was that every conversation you have, even if you don't convince the person to come your way, it plants a seed in them, and it's powerful. Because these people, every time you talk to them or every time someone talks to them, it influences them. So the hardest time is right at the beginning, like what all you guys are doing now. And you build a groundswell and then suddenly it takes off. But that beginning part, it kind of looks like maybe nothing's happening, but it is. And you have to have confidence that that's gonna carry forward.
Very cool.
I think it's also important that the Green New Deal addresses like the fact that we need to kind of help low-income areas really low-income areas kind of rebuild themselves so that they're safer for young people and use renewable energy to be able to not waste any money.
How about over here? Let's hear from over here. Would anyone like to share anything?
Well, I was just thinking how great it is that it doesn't really matter the outcome of this so much. It's as much as we want the best possible outcome. In 10 years, 5 years, it's going to be these people not only voting but in office as well. And the de facto accomplishment that they'll have then will be invigorating to see. And hopefully it can start now and build more and more to that. But the last laugh will be in this group. There'll be a resounding go to hell result.
Well, is there anyone else that would like to share anything last minute thoughts?
Not to say Green New Deal over there because I feel like we're talking about that. But I just think it's really inspiring to see that you've been doing this since high school parent over here and you're still doing it and it helps. It's kind of hard to envision a future growing up and experiencing people with climate change. And, it's hard to imagine what it would be like in 2050 because you keep this image in your head of it will be in 2050. But I think just it's a reminder that we all have to keep fighting and it's even if we get a Green Deal, we still have to fight as a people and keep fighting for what we want for climate change.
I think that there's always been people that lead the way, and they're not necessarily people who would talk the loudest. Like for my generation, and for me personally, it was Rachel Carson who wrote Silent Spring, figuring out that DDT, which was used in Vietnam and started being used as a pesticide everywhere, that birds were not hatching. The eggs were not hatching. And so there are always people like that if you kind of pay attention, they're telling the truth. And so I just think it's great that you guys are doing it in a organized, I shouldn't use the word organized, but in a movement. Because I think it'll
One more?
I think it's really annoying that no one really pays attention to kids. Like we saw in her office, they were asking her very quietly and she's just like, no, you don't know anything. She basically said, I don't care what you say, go away, I'm no better than you. Really annoying.
She acted pretty childish in my opinion.
So we talked about how it's important to protest or do a sit-in at some politician's office, it's also much more scarier to them if we go out and get more people to apply pressure. So that's things like knocking on doors, canvassing, having conversations, getting more people involved, and it's something that should be focused on, especially now since people are basically gonna vote pretty soon, so now's the time.
Don't worry about people positive. The one thing I will say about keeping on the positive side is I get the opportunity to vote for DNC delegates at the end of March. I get 20 votes, as a matter of fact. I don't know what people want to vote. So what I'll be doing is this. I'll be casting 7 votes myself. Delegates who I share the slate with, I'll have them choose 6. If you're interested in investigating who those other people are running for DNC delegates for Representative California, you're free to make 6 recommendations to me, and as long as not somebody I'll vote for. Because yeah, you should have a say in who supposedly represents California at a presidential convention. But that means you are going to have to do some work, and it's not easy to find out. So you might have to think, what kind of question to ask? What is it most important to you that somebody represents when they go to Milwaukee this summer and cast their ballot for president as delegates? So you got 6 votes for it. You got about a month and a half to decide if you choose. You don't have to if you don't want to. I understand about 50 to 60% of young people don't even want to Democrat. If you want to use the choice, by all means, I'll share the information with Mateos and Emma about how you can find out more about them. And then if you got recommendations, let me know. What am I going to do 20 votes? Yeah.
And you guys can also be delegates. So it's a very undemocratic process. So in 2016, because of Measure Z, we got like 400 people who voted for delegates that represent our area. 400 people, all Democrats registered in this county. That's nothing. This last time was like 200 people. So, you guys can also be delegates to the state convention. So the education process, I feel like I'm very opposed to everything that's like something you guys can do. So,
Okay, so Sam is also summarizer is just going to give a little speech right now, but after this we'll just segue right into our next video. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I'm Sam from the Center Movement. I'm just going to have a little speech about why I joined. I joined Sunrise because of our planet. I think that the government is not doing nearly enough to help with our climate crisis, and they dismiss us. They say we're too young, and because we're young, our opinions don't matter, but they do matter. And we need to fight for what's right for our planet, because if we don't, the government won't either. And at this point, that is not an option. That will not work. Climate change is my #1 priority, because if we just focus on the smaller issues, the more present issues, they aren't going to matter in 10 years and 20 years if the climate crisis keeps going. We need to take action now. Our Earth is not livable. People are getting sick and dying because of the pollutants in the air that we breathe. Sunrise is a way to make our voices heard, even if we're young, even if we can't vote. It is a way that we can march, that we can hold up signs, that we can spread the word about climate change, about what we need to do. The main thing we have going for us is the people. We need more people because we don't have a lot of money for our cause. We need power, and people are that power. So I encourage you all to spread the word, to tell everyone you know about Sunrise, about this cause, and encourage everyone to join.
Picture this. It's December 2020, 11 months from today. We wake up with tons of notifications, more links from family and friends.
We have won the votes of young people.
Every day, there are new articles trying to explain the green wave. Record youth turnout have elected President Sanders in a landslide. Your friends are texting you. Are we really going to do this? Are you going tomorrow? Millions of young people have pledged to take to the streets to kick off a mass youth strike for a Green New Deal. On
Bloomberg News, they're projecting that the first day alone will be bigger than even the Women's March. It really feels like another world is possible. Okay, I'm just daydreaming, but here's the thing about that picture. We actually have the power to make it real over the next 11 months. Whether we can pull it off is up to people like you and me.
Donald Trump's presidency, it has some critics raising the question, is our democracy in danger?
This year is a pivotal point in our country's history, the kind that only comes once in a generation. And with climate change bearing down on us and our Windows Act closing by the day, one thing is clear, it's now or never. What we do in the next 11 months will make or break our generation's shot at a livable world and a society that works for all people, no matter the color of their skin, how much money they have, or where they're from. We have the power this year to not only beat Donald Trump and inaugurate a new president, but to inaugurate a new chapter in American history, the decade of the Green New Deal. Here's how we're going to do it. Organize, vote, strike. There are a lot of ways that people try to make change. Some say you have to go it alone. Some believe that more people knowing the truth about the science will open the path for action. Others say we're doomed, or that we just need to develop more technology. For our entire lives is how so many have tried to stop the climate crisis, and it has just gotten worse. Every institution in our society has failed to address this problem. We're so late in addressing the crisis, at this point we literally cannot afford less than a heroic mobilization in every sector of society. Like when we got out of the Great Depression, defeated Hitler in Nazi Germany, or landed on the moon, the only institution capable of leading an effort that big is the federal government. How do we make the government do that? There are essentially two ways to make our government do what we need: money and people power. The opposition has money and they are spending it. Our institutions have failed us for decades because fossil fuel billionaires, like the Koch brothers, have spent piles of money buying our politicians, and so we doubt about the reality of climate change. What we have is so much more powerful: people. And people power can beat money any day, but only if we organize. It may seem like a fancy word, but anyone can do it. All it takes is talking to people and bringing them into the movement. From the lunch counter sit-ins of the civil rights movement to the movement to end the AIDS crisis. Young people have been on the forefront of social movements throughout history. Looking closely at that history, we see that there's one thing that can take on the wealthy and powerful and win: a massive, cross-class, multiracial movement that forces the political establishment to start acting in the interest of the people. That is the movement we are organizing this year. Like past movements, we need to be big and we need to be disruptive. With a massive movement that disrupts business as usual, we can deliver an undeniable mandate to the incoming Congress and administration to begin enacting a Green New Deal on day one.
Okay, we're going to build a powerful movement, but there's still an elephant in the room here. Do you think millions of us in the streets are going to seriously move this guy?
Green New Deal, a massive government takeover. It would shut down a little thing called air travel.
There are some politicians who will probably never do anything, no matter how much you pressure them. We also need to vote. Imagine if we replaced that with this.
We need millions of people from one end of this country to the other to stand up and fight back. Our job is to transform our energy system and save the planet.
That's why our movement will elect Bernie Sanders president of the United States this year. We're going all in to help Bernie win the Democratic nomination and then presidency. But let's be real, there's a chance we don't succeed in making Bernie the nominee. And we will still mobilize in force to defeat Trump and his fossil fuel cronies at the ballot box on November 3rd. The stakes of this election are too high for our generation to sit this one out. And it's not just the presidency.
We have to get to 100% renewable energy in these coming years.
AOC's election was decided by just a few thousand votes, and she has totally transformed American politics. This year, millennials and Gen Z will be the largest voting bloc in America. We have a plan to turn out in force to elect politicians up and down the ballot who will fight for the Green New Deal in every corner of the country. From farmer and educator Audrey Denny running on a Green New Deal from rural California in a historically red district, to movement champion Rashid Tlaib
defend your seat in Michigan, you've got seats to win. It all starts with the same task. Talking to our friends, neighbors, this time about the most important election of our lifetimes. Over the course of the year, we will be getting everyone we know to pledge to vote and strike in 2020. We'll collect hundreds of thousands of pledges and follow up with every single person, making calls and knocking doors to make sure as many young people as possible get out and vote. That way, we will register and turn out our generation in record numbers to put Bernie Sanders in the Oval Office, dozens of other Green New Deal champions.
Let's get back to December 2020, 11 months from now. Millions of young people are preparing to strike. In response, President Sanders has introduced the first bill of the Green New Deal, the Federal Jobs Guarantee. It's an ambitious plan to put millions of Americans to work, transitioning our economy to 100% renewable energy in just a decade. But sources say that Nancy Pelosi is preparing a net zero emission by 2050 resolution instead, just scrapping all the stuff about jobs and investment in communities that are struggling in favor of a non-binding target. It's easy to dream about all the good parts, but even if we elect a Green New Deal champion like Bernie for president, the fossil fuel billionaires would use every tool at their disposal to stop an ambitious, just Green New Deal from becoming law. And unfortunately, the last year has shown us that powerful politicians from both parties will stand in our way. As bold and transformative as the Green New Deal has never been passed without a massive and disruptive social movement behind it. After the election, our movement needs to be ready to get out into the streets, take over schools, politicians' offices, and government buildings, and hold creative, non-violent actions in every corner of the country. And we aren't just talking about one march or one afternoon. We are talking about millions of people participating in massive strikes that bring society to a grinding halt. Building a huge, powerful movement capable of doing that starts right now. There's one day, in just a few months, where everyone will already be talking about climate change. It's going to be an unprecedented opportunity to bring thousands of new people into the movement.
A unique day in America is presenting, a day set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival.
I'm talking about Breakthrough. This year is the 5th anniversary of the original mobilization that turned 20 million people out into the streets on April 22nd, 1970. It was this revolutionary moment in American history that led to the largest sweep of environmental legislation that this country has ever seen. But Breakthrough has changed a little in the last 50 years. It's been captured by politicians and corporations looking for an easy photo op and an easy talking point about broad support for the environment. This year, we're going to take back Breakthrough. We'll join young people across the world for the largest climate strike yet. The biggest priority is to have strikes in as many places as possible. In our high schools, workplaces, universities, churches, and other institutions. And these strikes will bring home the urgency of this crisis and the hope of the Green New Deal to every person and town across America.
If we pull that off on Earth Day, we'll push the Green New Deal to be the top issue in the 2020 elections and bring thousands of people into our movement, laying the groundwork for winning the Green New Deal in 2021. Organizing for that starts now. Really, it starts with you. The first step you can take right now is to host a strike circle, a 6-week program to plan a strike in your community for Earth Day 2020. It doesn't matter where you live, if you're in high school, college, or workplace, or whether you've never done anything like this before. Once you're in a strike circle, you'll get the tools to bring 5 to 15 people together, learn about social movements, gain core organizing skills, and gear up for a powerful Earth Day action. We'll give you everything you need, including sample meeting agendas, a dashboard to track your progress, and a coach who will help you every step of the way. Anyone can lead a strike circle. And we need strike circles all across America in order to become a movement that can win the Green New Deal. So to tie it all together, our plan this year is to organize, vote, strike. Right now, everything leads up to it, where we will pull off the largest climate strike yet. And then we'll turn toward the 2020 election and turn out our generation to vote in record numbers.
Everything this year builds towards a massive youth strike following the general election to deliver an undeniable mandate to the incoming Congress and administration to enact a Green New Deal on day one. It all starts right now, with you. Maybe this is unlike anything we've done before. If that's the case, strike circles are meant for you. And this moment in history requires all of us. At some point this December, you'll be thinking back to 11 months ago about how you were sitting in this room, hearing about plans to take back our country and our future. How do you want to feel looking back? And more importantly, what will it feel like to look forward on that day?
All the kids here in the Sunrise Movement are very into social media, so if you can follow them all on Instagram under Sunrise Movement Salinas. Yes, so, and the movement is MVMT. They all talk about their strike circles coming up, and when their meetings are. They're going to be holding a meeting this Saturday from 4 to 6. Everyone is welcome. They're going to start talking about Earth Day and preparations for that. They're going to be holding a huge strike in front of Salinas High School, but they're going to hash out those plans. But it will be on Wednesday, April the 22nd, which is Earth Day. So everyone is invited to attend that. And so again, you know, I'm Mateos's mom, sorry. So I'm like, don't forget this and don't forget that. And also there's Wendy signs, Adam signs, Bernie signs, all the Bernie merch. Everything here is for you guys to put in your lawns and your windows. There's some canvassing opportunities on the tables. Thank you, Bob and Rita, for all the Bernie stuff. I hope you thank you for putting it out. And
so that formally ends our launch party. I think, as Lynn said, I think everyone's coming.